Welcome to Module 1.2, Scalpers University. Topic is psychology, and today's lesson is on rewiring your brain to trade successfully. So this is where we dig deeper into the nuance of trading psychology. This is actually where most of your edge will be developed. Any trader can figure out the meta. Truth is truth at the end of the day. You may not have understood those truths before you watched that video, but if you had have done research and thought about it yourself, you could have come to the conclusions. Everybody can come to those conclusions about the market with a little bit of analysis or a little bit of searching. So it's not really an edge in and of itself. Understanding the meta is important because that's where you must begin. But the process of rewiring your trading brain is actually what will set you apart from the 90% of traders who don't take the time to do that self-work and improve themselves. Moving into the specifics, rule number 6, each trade exists in a vacuum. I would say that the single most important thing to remember in terms of your trading psychology is that one trade has no bearing on the next. Okay? So the previous trade being a winner does not mean that the next trade is going to be a winner too. Similarly, the previous trade being a loser does not mean that the next one is going to be a loser as well. The best example of this would be chart patterns. So you might see a 4-hour candlestick bull flag, which happened 3-4 weeks ago and resulted in a 6% bump on BTC, and it was a really good long setup. Fast forward a few weeks later and it appears again, a 4-hour candlestick bull flag. That does not mean that this setup is going to play out like the last one. All right, we all know that, yet people still put some type of predictive power into patterns that they've seen before. And I use patterns as the easiest example, but this goes for every type of conventional wisdom in a market. Okay, every single type. People who trade purely off the RSI, people who trade purely off the fear and greed index, stuff like that. If you go back and look at the fear and greed index, you'll notice that it sits in greed for many, many weeks before the actual top. And it tends to languish in fear for, again, many, many weeks before we actually break from the bottom. So it's not as simple as just having a data point and following it. It's much more important to understand that everything you do has a discrete outcome. It exists by itself. It has no bearing on what happened before or what happens after. And what you're doing is essentially just focusing trade by trade on the next one. If you follow professional sports, you'll hear that all the time. You'll hear, let's say in football, whether that's American football or real football, you'll hear the people say, the coach after the game or the players after the game will say, good win today, and I think you're going to get to the final, and say this is just like a group game. He says, no, we just take it game by game. We're just focused on the next game. And that's exactly how you should trade. If you want to make $1 million trading, you shouldn't be thinking about how to get to your $1 million when you're in your 10th trade. On your 10th trade, you should be thinking about your 11th trade. Okay, so when your 10th trade completes, your 11th trade begins. And your trade doesn't just begin whenever you press buy or press sell, of course. It begins when you start to map it out. It begins when you monitor the markets. It begins even when you decide not to take a trade. Focus on each trade in a vacuum. Again, with the sports analogy, as it's a very good analogy for anything to do with games or with process, you'll often hear, especially in very coordination-based games such as golf or basketball, say Michael Jordan or Tiger Woods, very, very process-driven individuals. Michael Jordan just went out every time to shoot every basket as perfectly as he could. He just tried to shoot, as many as he could over and over and over and over and over again. That was never something that deterred him from taking a shot. He knew it was a numbers game. The reason he was so good, the reason Tiger Woods was so good, was that every single shot they took had no bearing on the next one or the one previous. And for trading and for life, for sports in general, it's the previous that's more important than the next. We have a tendency to live in the future and dwell on the past. We're constantly striving to get somewhere. You're trying to get to a certain profit target, but you're also stuck with all the mental baggage of your previous trades, the bad ones, or the complacency that sets in from a good one. You need to just drop that and focus on each trade as it comes. And 7 is you must put science before art. So when it comes to the psychology of trading, amateurs get it wrong. I say amateurs, I just mean anybody who's new to trading, anybody who's not consistently profitable and making it a steady, reliable stream of income, because they begin with a mechanical mindset and they either don't have the discipline or they have their ego takes over and they abandon it to become a discretionary trader before they have earned the right to have discretion. Science, as it says here, is mechanical rules-based trading, and art, as I define it, is discretionary or intuitive trading. As a scalper or a day trader, a key part of your trading psychology. Because you're somebody who takes a high frequency of trades, you need to focus on the act of trading before adding discretion. Like I said in Rule 6, it's about being process-driven, not outcome-driven. You have to first adopt the mindset of trading in a series of trades basis. So, like we said, don't think trade by trade in terms of this next trade is the most important thing to me. Using the science analogy, you want to imagine yourself as a researcher who's conducting a sample size of trades. So if you think of yourself as a scientist, a researcher, investigator, whatever you want, you're hardwiring this into your brain to focus on the process and not the end result. It's particularly important when you think about the context of Rule 6. Rule 6 says that each trade exists by itself and that you focus on that trade while you're trading it. Rule 7 might seem a little bit contradictory to that, where I say that one trade is irrelevant. You should be able to see the nuance within that. Just as a professional sports team know that one game is irrelevant in the context of a season, unless in a very, very specific circumstance. But in general, one game won't matter across a season. Yet, every game is the most important game of their lives. And every game is the only thing they focus on in the moment. And that's because you can only live in the moment. You can't live in the past or in the future. But when you're trading, you need to be fully present in the moment of that trade, always with the understanding that it's not make or break, life or death in this one trade. You need 100 trades to determine whether you have a true edge in your method or system, okay? So if you need to have 100 trades to really know, to really nail that system, then one trade's irrelevant. That doesn't mean that you can break your rules on that trade, quite the opposite. It means that you must follow the rules for every single trade, for that 100 trade sample size. But it means the result becomes irrelevant. And when you start detaching yourself from the result and focusing more on the process, you will end up by proxy just automatically becoming a better trader. And that will actually take a good percentage of you who are just shy of being profitable. Just that one thing alone will make you profitable. I guarantee it. Now, if you don't know how to trade and you're reading this, there's a lot more that you need to learn as well. But if you're already a trader who's like at a bit of a plateau, this is typically the thing that tips them across the edge. Because it's the hardest thing for men, especially within trading, it's the hardest thing for us to master, because we have this innate desire to be right. We're meant to show value by being a leader, and leaders are right. Leaders make the correct decision, and everything you see in the media, movies and all that kind of shit, you see the alpha male who's the lead character, like James Bond or something. He just flows through the movie, never makes a mistake, never trips, never does anything stupid, never shoots a friendly. He always shoots the bad guy, he always gets the girl, all that kind of shit. You program your whole life to expect complete perfection out of everything you do. And in trading, it's very much pushed upon you by the talking heads, by the exchanges themselves, even little things right down to the psychology of the colours on the screens and making it like a casino. They make it all about wins and losses. You have to integrate a third-party software like EdgeSheet through the API to then be able to look at your trades and say, oh, I won 36% of my trades today, I need to do better. Or I won 70% of my trades today, that was a good day. There's a reason why that stuff's not just available on the screen as you're trading, because that would make you automatically think in percentages instead of dollars. And that makes you a better trader, but that's not good for the exchange as a whole. Because the exchange doesn't necessarily want you to be a better trader, they just want you to trade more. They make their money off fees, so trading in and out. The more executions you make, the more trades you take, the more money they will get. You will take more trades if you don't know what you're doing than if you do. When you really have a system dialed in and you're trading well and you're on a bit of a streak, you'll notice that you trade less because you actually know what you're looking for and you actually have conviction in what you're trading, and therefore you're happy to wait for your setup to come. When you're trading without a plan or without any knowledge, even if you're winning, you're still just pressing buttons. You're pressing green, you're pressing red, and sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. You're in a casino, you're gambling. Cut that shit out completely. Focus on mechanical before discretion. If you've ever been in telesales, you'll know this exactly. You start off with a script, okay, typical sales job. You start off with a script from your boss on day one, and you read it like a robot on your first 1,000 calls, until slowly you start to download all the data from those calls into your brain and become more and more natural in your approach. And eventually you're flowing with no script and you're selling just in God mode. You're talking like a real person, but you've got all the core elements of that script ingrained in your brain, and you're pulling out the right words at the right times, and you're handling the objections where you should handle them, and you're pushing for the close, and you're doing everything the way it should be. That's exactly like the trading method. You have to start with mechanical before you can earn the right to become discretionary. There is a trading God mode, but it only exists for those who first put in the reps in a mechanical setup. Rule 8, you can be right or you can be rich. What this means, it's very easy to get obsessed and caught up with being right and being the guy who calls the market. It's more prevalent for me than it is for any of you, because my job within anywhere that I give analysis, or anyone who relies on me for market insights or trades, my reputation lives and dies on being right. This act of teaching, contrary to popular belief, like believe it or not, you get very focused upon being right rather than focusing on what makes you money. You know, if there's a few wrong trades, you think that the person is no longer good at what they do. That's completely misrepresenting what trading is all about. You know, it's a sample size, isn't it? It's about a huge number of trades, and over those number of trades, can you be profitable a certain percentage of the time? Amateurs focus on single trades because they want to be right every time through ego. Professionals focus on a series of trades because they want to make money over time, and they remove ego. Amateurs live and die on their next trade. They don't actually know what they're doing, and their only way of trading is to win. Because if they win, they think, I'm a genius. If they lose, they think, you're not wrong, the market's wrong. To them, if they're wrong, they can never make money. But a professional can be wrong and make money. A professional knows that he will be wrong and can still make money. I hope that's starting to click for you, that when you know that you can be wrong and make money, you begin to lose the fear of being wrong. And once you lose the fear of being wrong, you're halfway to becoming a profitable trader just off that. Because if you ever think about any bad decision you've ever made in a trade, it is always based in fear. You know, you might say, well, what about whenever you hold on to a trade too long, a profitable trade too long? Some say that's greed, but I would say that's the fear of not being able to get in a good trade again. Does that make sense? The obvious fear trades are where you move your stop loss because you're about to get stopped out, so you're fearful. Where you remove your stop loss totally because you're fearful again of taking the loss. But the one where you let it run too long, where you've got, say, let's talk in terms of R, you've got a trade that's a 3R winner, so you've 3 times your risk. You risked 100 and you're already up 300, let's say. You remove your take profit, your original take profit, and you let it run further. And it goes to 4R, and you feel like a genius, and then it drops back. It goes to 3, you're like, okay, I'm still at 3, I'll let it run. And the next thing is down at 2.5, then 2, then 1.5. What that was grounded in is not greed. It was grounded in the fear that you didn't actually know how you got a 3R winner in the first place. And so you were fearful that you couldn't do it again because you don't have the confidence. And so you let the trade run because you wanted to try to get the most out of it. So professionals don't do that. Professionals understand randomness and probability. And they also understand that one trade has no bearing on the success or failure of them or their system. A professional doesn't live and die on his winners or his losers. He shouldn't, anyway. One trade has no bearing on the success or failure of your system. It can only be a failure to your system if you make that fatal decision of removing a stop or changing the plan or doing something like that. If you let your trade run to invalidation and cut, no one trade can fail your system. You know, there's not going to be one trade that makes you the millionaire, all right? Not in trading itself. Yes, you can buy a coin that goes 1000x and makes you a millionaire. That's not trading. That's just gambling. Because no trader would let a coin go 1000x. Focus on making money, not on being right. There are traders who I know personally, and I've even had systems myself in the past, which have been profitable with a 40% win rate. So I was actually wrong more often than I was right and still made money. That type of system is 100% psychological. The system was super basic, a nice series of winners at around 2.5R, and was 4 out of 10 of them were winners, and so you could make money. But the biggest thing that would fuck that up is that you're watching more than 1 in 2 trades lose, and it's actually that over time that gets you. So even though you know your system is 40% accurate and the risk reward pays that off to being profitable, you still get this urge to be right. And so you either tweak the system, trying to make it better and fuck it up, or you make bad decisions. You oversize or remove your stops or hold your trade too long, all those type of things. Rule number 9, analysis is not execution. So once you truly accept that trading is not about being right, and you understand that it's actually just a random game of chance, which it is, then you can begin to execute without fear. You buy Bitcoin at 50k and you sell it at 60k. How does it get there? You are a passive participant because you stepped in at 50, you bought it, you did nothing. That could have took 2 weeks. You could have went on holiday. You could have fucking gone to the moon and back. You could have done anything, but you weren't there moving the market. You bought it at 50, you let everyone else do the work, and then it got to 60, didn't you? That's how it works. So when you buy a coin, you're reliant on others to push it higher to your target so you can take profit. This is why analysis does not predict the market, and this is why execution is more important than analysis. Because analysis cannot tell you if a whale is going to come in, market buy $100 million worth of BTC to push the price up 1%, and move it closer to your take profit. No analysis can tell you that. The only one who can tell you that is the whale who comes in and sees the order books and says, fuck it, I'm going to market buy and push the market up. You're hitching a ride on the back of their coattails. So if that's the case, then it's nothing to do with analysis. Analysis is bullshit. Even when you're right, even when Bitcoin does go from 50 to 60, it's not because of your superior analysis. It was still other people who came in and moved the market in your favor. So I'm not saying fuck analysis, but it's way, way less relevant than people want to believe. Because I've fucking bought every scalping or trading course that I could find to try and, understand what other people are teaching so I can make my teachings better than theirs. And they don't talk about this kind of stuff. They don't talk about psychology. They don't actually talk about the true alpha, which is nothing to do with analysis. And the reason for that is because you can't draw it on a chart, you can't share it on Twitter and make it viral and retweets, and you can't do long YouTube videos on it because nobody watches them. Go and Google trading psychology and you'll see the YouTube views like super low on average. Go and search fucking Bitcoin whale manipulation buzzwords and you'll see millions of views. Because everyone wants to be like seeing some type of on-chain analysis or Elliott wave or Wyckoff. Tons of Wyckoff videos with massive views going around after the May 2021 top, or the May 2021 crash. Men, again especially, and we're a predominantly male-dominated industry, we need to feel like we're doing something in terms of we need to feel like we're figuring out the market rather than accepting that the market is random and that we're just playing with probabilities. So that's why men get drawn to analysis tools. Don't know how common it is. I've heard it a lot, but I'm deep in the industry. Is that TA, so technical analysis, is astrology for men. And it's so true. The same way that women look for meaning in astrology, by and large, I know there's guys who do too, but by and large women look for meaning in astrology. For men, it's the same thing. Men look for meaning in practical things. Women look for meaning in more mystical or spiritual things. But at the end of the day, it's the same thing. It's the same way that people who are atheist believe that they're not religious, even though they are ascribing to the exact same views or the exact same patterns of behavior as the most fundamental religious person. Aren't they? Did you see it? Why would an atheist go on, create a full YouTube channel about how God doesn't exist and go on radio shows and talk shows and debate against a priest or a preacher if he wasn't in his own religion, his own cult? So the cognitive biases run deep in people, and it's the same with analysis. Analysis is 100% to make you feel as if there's a reason for what you did. So when you get that good trade, you can say, oh, well, it was obviously because I read the on-chain data and I knew Bitcoin was going to pump. That's not true. It can help, but it's way less relevant than people like to believe. Remember from the previous video where I put tactics, which analysis falls into, it's a tactic. Analysis and tactics is number 5 in my order of importance. So hopefully by now you're starting to understand why that is.